Group.
Thank you, Chairman. Director Haynes, you've outlined the atrocities that Russia has committed in Ukraine. Last year, this body passed a statutory provision to create a Russian atrocities special coordinator within the IC. You have appointed this position. You have moved forward and are complying with it, which I thank you for that effort. That position, the Intelligence Community Coordinator for Russian Atrocities Accountability, my understanding is working. Can you just share with us very briefly what you're learning, how this process is working, and how it might be a model for other instances?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you very much for your support for this issue and your efforts to help us essentially produce this. So this is the person that we have as the coordinator is somebody who has long history and knowledge of working on accountability issues in intelligence, and it's maybe a specialized field in the sense that part of what you're trying to do is best understand what kind of information is going to be useful for promoting accountability in these areas. So that means understanding what the policymakers, what the Department of State and the Department of Justice, who are typically the ones that are effectively making determinations in this area, really need as evidence in order to actually produce accountability. And then how it is that we draw that together and provide it to those institutions in ways that ultimately may be releasable for various bodies and folks that are working on these issues, and how we can help to therefore promote greater awareness within our policy community on these issues. And one of the things that he's done is really working across the IC, but also with folks at the State Department, at the Department of Justice, who are consistently iterating with him on what is needed in this space in order to produce that kind of flow. So I do think it is serving already as a model. We've also appointed him in the context of accountability with respect to Chinese and PRC issues, according to the law that requested that we do so. And I think he's been helping develop a kind of an educated community of interest within the community on these issues. I
appreciate your leadership on that. Director Wray, you said earlier in the hearing that there is a veritable rogues gallery of terrorist organizations who have now articulated threats against the United States recently, and that there's been a surge of those threats, including among groups who previously don't get along. They've kind of found common cause against threats in the United States. What's causing that surge in threats?
So these are all foreign terrorist organizations that have leveraged the conflict in the Middle East as their excuse to serve as a rallying cry to their followers. Meaning
the Israel-Hamas war in Gaza?
Correct.
So that war is causing a surge in threats against the United States?
Correct.
Okay, and in what way? Like, how are they leveraging it? Could you provide more detail?
Well, it varies a little bit depending on the organization, but for example, we've seen Al-Qaeda call for its most specific call for attacks against the United States in, I think, the last 5 years. And so they're invoking both Hamas's success, brutal, horrifying, unacceptable success on October 7th, and the conflict, of course, that's then emerged as Israel's tried to defend itself.
Does that include the number of civilian casualties in Gaza? Has that been a part of the articulation and the leveraging that you've seen from these groups?
It probably depends on the specific group, but some of them, sure.
Okay. Director Burns, you spent your career in national security and decades helping us fight our war on terror. Based on that experience, do you believe that it's possible to destroy a terrorist ideology or an ideology that underpins a terrorist organization with military force alone?
Oh, I mean, I think military force can severely degrade, the terrorist military capacities of any terrorist group, and that's a fairly well-defined goal. When you're talking about a movement or an idea or an ideology, in my experience, the only way you kill that or destroy that is with a better idea.
Okay. And what would those better ideas include in your professional opinion?
Well, I mean, I think setting aside for a second, the understandable goal of destroying the capacity of a terrorist group, I think you have to provide more broadly, and this is more a function of policy and diplomacy than intelligence, but it's a sense of hope, a sense of purpose, in this case for Palestinians, so that, you know, there's a way of undermining the ideology of groups like Hamas.
Okay, thank you very much. I yield back.
Mr. LaHood.